Hey everyone, Keith Lackner here. I'm going to make you guys a two-part series on one question that I get asked a lot, and that's about molds. This whole video is going to be about molds and mold making. Now when I make molds, I split up into two completely different categories. We've got throwaway molds, and then we've got reusable molds. So one of the benefits of having a reusable mold is that you can actually very easily just cast it, knock it out, and go ahead and go again. This is for people that are production casters, or if you're going to be turning a lot of pieces, like these snowmen that I do. I found it was just so much easier just to make a bunch of these. I've got about 12 of these molds set up to where I could actually cast 12 snowmen at once, turn them around, knock them out, make another piece, throw it in there, and go ahead and go. One of the things that we're actually going to really talk about is my pine cone lidded box. Over the years of making this, I've actually gotten a lot of emails from people wanting to know a lot more detail about my mold that I do. So we're going to split it up into two different sections, and we're going to show you how I make those molds. Then in the second video, I'm going to come back and show you everything I do for throwaway molds. Throwaway molds are a really good, cheap way of making a mold really quick so that you could just make a really weird size piece. I've got a lot of my pieces that are really big, so you know, I get really big concrete molds from Menards. These are 12-inch, and I'm going to show you how I actually make a lot of my molds. So stay tuned. This is a piece of 4-inch coupling PVC material. So this is not 4-inch PVC that you buy. This is the coupling that ties the two together. So this is the material that I use, and then I'm going to use a piece of 2-inch PVC, and I'm going to put that right in the center, and then we're going to be able to stage our pine cones around it. And the bottom is actually just going to be a piece of UHMW that I have right here that we're going to use in this project. So for all of this, you're probably looking at about, well, I know the coupling material on this PVC was $15 exactly. I got it at Menards. And this piece right here I got on Amazon, and I want to say I spent 20 bucks. And I'll be able to get 2 full sets of molds out of this. So what? You got 22 bucks? So for $22, you've got a reusable mold. So I think it's well worth it. As many of these as I sell and how many of these I make, it's definitely well worth it to be able to cast it. And the great thing about this too is you're going to be able to actually, people ask how I arrange my pine cones. Well, when we make the mold, we're actually going to make the pine cones right here. We're going to cut them and shape them a little bit so that they just slide right in all the way around, so we can actually use the mold to stand these suckers up just perfect. So stay tuned. Okay, so one thing about these PVC couplings is that you can see I painted it black to make it easier for you guys to see in there. That's an actual stop. So basically the design of this is you can put 2 pieces of 4-inch together. These stops actually make it so that the PVC seats properly. It's actually halfway right there, so you know you got enough meat inside on each side of your PVC pipe. So unfortunately it doesn't work for us. So we're gonna have to remove that. I'm gonna put it on the lathe, and I'm gonna show you the easiest way. If you don't wanna remove it on the lathe, you can just take a Dremel tool and a sander and get in there and go all the way around. But I figure we got a lathe, why not use our lathe? Okay, so the first thing is we're just gonna cut this into, this is a 12-inch sheet, we're gonna cut it 6, 6, 6, 6 all the way around. Okay, so now we're on the lathe. Like I said, I'm choosing to cut this out on the lathe versus just taking a Dremel tool and getting in there, because I've got to be on the lathe anyway. I've got to be able to cut the dado into these so that these sit down inside. Okay, you see we changed over now. We've got our faceplate on, and I've got a waste block that's on there. All we're gonna do is we're gonna apply a generous amount of hot melt glue to the back surface, and we're going to bring our tailstock in. Tailstock's always engaged in something like this. You've got plastic here. Plastic's really not known for accepting glue that well, but this glue, the hot melt glue that I'm gonna use, it's actually gonna hold it well enough with the tailstock engaged. Oops. Just take your tailstock. Since we got that hole, it is very easy. We're just going to use the tailstock to engage it and use it as a press until it's ready to set. Okay, so this is going to be the lid. We're going to do the lid first, and the lid and the base are, for this part, is the exact same process. The base of it, we're actually going to have to do this step again, but measure the 2-inch piece of PVC. So what we're going to do is, I've got 2 calipers. You really don't need 2, but I like to have 2. All we're going to do is measure the outside. Because like I said, we want this to actually seat inside, not just sit on top and then glue around. Okay, so the only time that we're going to disengage the tailstock is in this very beginning step, because we have to be able to mark this. Now, one thing that we're going to do is we're only going to mark this side. This part of the veneered caliper we're going to touch. Once this line touches that line, we know we got exactly what we want. We're definitely not going to come in here with both, because what's going to happen is this is spinning counterclockwise. This part's going to dig in and it's going to throw itself. So all we ever want to do when we do this process is only touch one side. Now that we got lucky, I'm not going to lie about that. See how the 2 lines are perfect? Normally you would have to move and slide over a little bit. I actually got it first time out on that one, but I probably won't get that lucky on this one. There we go. Okay, now we're going to do the exact same process that we did for the outer ring. We're going to do that on the inner ring. So what we're going to do is take our calipers, measure the outside, take our other calipers, measure the inside, and then transfer the lines over. Okay, so really the last thing that we just need to do is we just need to assemble this and then cut everything to size. So all we're going to do is take this, put that in there. What I'm going to do is just measure. I want this sitting just a little bit proud. Little bit, not too much. And then the very last thing that we're going to do for these molds is, this is just for me, and I found out this early on. If you got a 5-gallon pressure pot like me, and you want to put these things side by side, the problem is that the diagonal distance, you won't be able to fit them in there. So what I like to do is I just like to take them over to the bandsaw. We're just going to do this by freehand. Just knock all these corners off. Okay, now the very last step to do is on the lid section, I actually like to cut off half of it. I like to cut it down to about a little over 3 inches. So let's take our square, just mark that line. The reason I like to do that is because if you're following along in the book, I actually call out to use the cutoffs. So it's all the cutoffs for the pine cone make up the lid. It's just that really nice natural pattern of a bunch of cutoffs. you're going to need to weigh in order to make those so they stay down. So if I cut half of this off, I could run a piece of duct tape across in each direction. That way it ensures that all the pine cones don't flow to the top as I put resin in. Okay, so now the very last step is the assembly process. All I do is just use hot melt glue. Hot melt does a great job sealing, and not only sealing, is it actually doesn't adhere the greatest to the UHMW and the PVC. So it's removable. You can knock it out. A couple of good hits with a hammer and you're stripping it all out. So just a couple of, I run a bead all the way around the outside of these. What I like to do is just apply a little pressure, give it just a little twist. And then the last thing I do on every one of these molds, on all my molds, whether it's a disposable one or a reusable one, is I actually just go around and just form another nice little bead all the way around. Last thing you want to do is actually start pouring and seeing resin coming out. And that's it. We're going to repeat the exact same process for this one. And then all you got to do after that is cut your pine cones to fit, and you could actually just slide them in there. And then one thing I like to do is run a little bit of duct tape over after they're all wedged in, just to ensure that they don't float up. But after that, you're ready to go. Thanks for watching.